Figures, Young Readers Edition. Written by Margot Lee Shetterly. Table of Contents. Chapter 1, Setting the Scene. Chapter 2, Dorothy Vaughan. Chapter 3, Mary Jackson. Chapter 4, Katherine Johnson. Chapter 5, Christine Darden. Chapter 6, Talented Woman. Chapter 7, A Different Time. Chapter 8, Segregation. Chapter 9, Did the End of Slavery Bring Freedom? Chapter 10, Change. Setting the scene. Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, and Katherine Johnson and Christine Darden loved math. As children in school, math was a strength. As adults, they first worked as math teachers and then as computers. Before we had computers, like our laptops, a computer was a person who did math. A computer was a mathematician. Dorothy, Mary, Katherine, and Christine were computers. They were fantastic at their jobs. Dorothy joined the National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics in 1943. NACA was an organization that studied flight. This includes studying all about airplanes. Dorothy was one of the first African American women to get a job as a computer at NACA. She was the first one of the African American women to be given a management position. She helped many African American women by being brave and going first. A pioneer is a person that goes first. Dorothy Vaughan was a pioneer. Mary Jackson was the first African American woman to become an engineer at NACA. An engineer is a person who designs and builds complex machines or buildings. Engineers want to know why and how things work. Mary was an engineer that wanted to know all about airplanes. Her work helped make the supersonic airplane fly higher and faster. Mary was an advocate. An advocate is someone who helps others. She had to advocate for herself and other women. Katherine Johnson was an African American woman and a computer at NACA. Katherine helped do the math that was required to send the first men into space and bring them home safely. She was a very important member of the team that put the first American in orbit around Earth. Christine Darden was an African American woman who worked at NACA. Christine was one of the world's leading experts on supersonic flight. An expert is someone that knows a lot about one topic. Christine's research on predicting sonic booms is still used today. Generations of female space scientists look up to Christine. The accomplishments of Dory, Mary, Katherine, and Christine were incredible. They were remarkable computers and scientists, but also pioneers, advocates, and experts. They had to overcome discrimination. Discrimination is the unfair treatment of one particular person or a group of people. These women lived in the South when racial discrimination was normal. Racial discrimination is the unfair treatment of one particular person or a group of people based on the color of their skin or culture. Racial discrimination is treating someone in a mean manner because of the belief that one person or group is different, and that's the difference, is bad or wrong. Dorothy, Mary, Katherine, and Christine had to work harder than other people because they were African American. These women also lived in a time where only men were allowed to be engineers and scientists. Women were expected to stay home or become teachers if they were interested in math or science. When women are untreated fairly compared to men, this is called gender discrimination. They had to work harder than other people because they were women. America has a history of slavery. Slavery is when a person is forced to do a very hard job against their will without being paid. In the 1800s, the American government passed laws that ended slavery. This should have given all African Americans full citizenship and the right to vote. However, state and local governments made different laws that legalized racial segregation. Racial segregation is when one group of people is separated from everyone else based on the color of their skin and/or culture. Segregation was most common in the South. These laws kept black people and white people apart. They could not eat in the same restaurants. They could not drink from the same water fountains. They could not use the same bathrooms. They could not go to the same schools. They could not live in the same neighborhoods. They could not be treated at the same hospitals. They could not play sports together. Everything was done separately, not together. With no slavery, every man in America should have been able to vote. Instead, most African Americans could not vote, serve on juries, and run for political office. Voting, serving on juries, and running for political office are all examples of civil rights. Rights are freedoms that are guaranteed by the Constitution. However, these laws meant that African Americans did not have the same rights and freedoms of others. They were no longer slaves, but they were not free. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, it was hard to find jobs. All Americans struggled to make enough money to pay for needs, but it was even harder for African Americans. In the 1940s, World War II began. World War II brought new jobs and new opportunities. African American men were able to join the military. These men believed that their loyalty and patriotism would help gain their freedoms. Many African American women also joined the military and hoped to gain freedoms. The war also gave women like Dorothy, Catherine, Mary, and Christine new opportunities. These women were smart, brave, confident, and good at math. The war was changing the world, and it would change their lives too. The end.